Thank you for tuning in. You are listening to the book summary of The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. The narration is brought to you by The Whispering Shelf. Part 1. Prologue. The Tale of Narcissus. The novel opens with an allegorical tale read by the alchemist himself. About Narcissus, the beautiful youth who, enchanted with his own reflection, falls into a lake and drowns. When the forest goddesses find the lake weeping, they assume it grieves for Narcissus's beauty, only to learn the lake mourns the loss of seeing its own beauty reflected in Narcissus's eyes. This unique take on the myth foreshadows one of the central themes of the book: self-discovery, the interplay of self and the world, and the quest to find meaning beyond just appearances. Part 2. Santiago, the shepherd, dreams and desires. Santiago is a young Andalusian shepherd who cherishes both the freedom of his nomadic life and the routine comfort it provides. The story begins as he leads his flock to rest for the night in a ruined church. Under a sycamore tree, Santiago has grown close to his sheep and often reads aloud to them, finding companionship in their silent but attentive company. Despite his simple yet content existence, Santiago is troubled by a recurring dream, a child appearing to him and leading him to hidden treasure at the base of the Egyptian pyramids. He recalls an earlier conversation with his father, who wished him to become a priest. Santiago instead chose the shepherd's life. Craving to travel and see the world, his father had accepted this, gifting him coins to start his flock, seeing in his son a living out of his own long-buried desires. Part 3. The Merchant's Daughter and the Thread of Change. Santiago reminisces about the merchant's daughter he met during previous travels, anticipating a return to her village. The excitement is mixed with hesitation, as he wonders if she'll remember him. Thoughts of her highlight Santiago's longing for both adventure and companionship, yet suggest the constant tension between settling down and pursuing dreams. Part 4. The Gypsy Woman. Dreams interpreted. Santiago, seeking meaning from his unexplained dream, visits a gypsy fortune-teller in Tarifa. Though wary of her reputation and superstitions, he is comforted by the Christian icons in her home. She listens to his dream and, after extracting a promise of 1/10 of his treasure, simply tells him to follow the dream and find his treasure at the pyramids. Santiago leaves feeling both relieved at not having to pay, and annoyed by what seems like a generic answer. Yet the encounter plants the idea of real possibility. Part 5. Melchizedek, King of Salem. The Universal Message. Shortly thereafter, Santiago meets a mysterious old man in the plaza, claiming to be Melchizedek, the King of Salem. The stranger knows intimate details about Santiago's life, including the nature of his recurring dream. He introduces Santiago to the idea of the personal legend, everyone's unique destiny, known best in youth but often forgotten with age. Melchizedek tells Santiago that pursuing one's personal legend is life's only real obligation and that the universe conspires to help those who seek it. He warns of the world's greatest lie, that fate, not choice, controls our destiny. At first, Santiago is skeptical, suspecting a scam. Melchizedek, to prove his legitimacy, writes personal facts in the sand and asks for 1/10 of Santiago's flock in exchange for information about the treasure. The king gives Santiago 2 magical stones, Urim and Thummim, to help interpret omens on his journey, one signifying yes, the other no. With a combination of curiosity and the sense of possibility Melchizedek inspires, Santiago sells his flock, pays the king, and sets out for Africa. Part 6. Crossing into Africa. Loss and lesson. Santiago's journey to Tangier is immediately marked by disaster. He is robbed by a man he trusted to act as his guide, losing all his money in a foreign country where he cannot speak the language. Feeling betrayed, alone, and adrift, Santiago contemplates returning home but ultimately remembers Melchizedek's advice and decides to continue pursuing his dream, viewing the situation as a test of faith rather than defeat. Part 7. The Crystal Shop. Learning through adversity. Searching for sustenance, Santiago offers to clean dirty crystal in a struggling merchant's shop in exchange for food. The merchant, bound by religious custom to help the hungry, watches as Santiago's work brings in customers. Impressed by Santiago's initiative, he offers him a job. Santiago works diligently, persuading the merchant to innovate, displaying crystal outside to attract passers-by and serving tea in crystal glasses to increase sales. These suggestions challenge the merchant, who is fearful of change and has avoided pursuing his own dream of pilgrimage to Mecca for decades. Nevertheless, Santiago's enthusiasm rejuvenates the shop, leading to improved business, increased profits, and a bustling trade. Over almost a year, Santiago saves enough to buy back a large flock and return to Spain. Yet he hesitates. Through his conversations with the merchant, he realizes the dangers of letting comfort and fear take precedence over dreams. He sees that many people, like the merchant, live satisfied but incomplete lives by choosing the safety of unfulfilled ambitions over the uncertainty of pursuing aspirations. Part 8. Transformation and Resolve. At the crystal shop, Santiago experiences deep personal growth. He relinquishes the idea of simply returning home with his new wealth. Feeling the pull of his personal legend grow, the merchant, grateful yet unwilling to change his ways, gives Santiago his blessing to move on, acknowledging the difference between those who seek to fulfill their dreams and those who prefer only to dream about them. As Santiago prepares to leave, he is reminded by the magical stones Urim and Thummim of Melchizedek's words and the sense of destiny that accompanies his journey. Part 9. The Caravan Beacons. Onward to the desert, emboldened by his lessons in faith, entrepreneurship, and interpreting omens, Santiago chooses to join a caravan bound for the Egyptian pyramids instead of returning to Spain, setting up the quest that will take him deeper into the desert, toward further encounters with seekers, the Englishman, Fatima, and eventually the alchemist himself. Part 10. The Journey into the Desert. Santiago joins the caravan, freshly empowered by the wealth and lessons he gained at the crystal shop. Santiago faces a crossroads: return to Spain with the means to rebuild his flock, or risk everything to continue his quest for the treasure at the Egyptian pyramids. The pull of his personal legend, echoed by the memory of Melchizedek's encouragement and the stones Urim and Thummim, urges him forward. He seeks out a caravan bound for Egypt, learning almost by accident that it will pass through the oasis of Al-Fayoum, a location famous for its size, its peace, and, as Santiago will later discover, its mysteries. At the caravan camp, Santiago meets an Englishman, a scholarly, somewhat aloof seeker who is obsessed with finding a true alchemist rumored to dwell at Al-Fayoum. The Englishman's baggage is full of books on alchemy, and he introduces Santiago to the arcane language and symbolism of the craft. The caravan departs, crossing the brutal Sahara. The journey is both physical and metaphysical, a test of endurance, faith, patience, and adaptability. Part 11. The caravan's microcosm and lessons from the desert. With the camel drivers, merchants, and travelers, Santiago observes the law of the caravan. Life and death are at the mercy of sandstorms, tribal wars, and the elemental forces of the desert. The caravan's leader, an authoritative Bedouin, reinforces the need to obey his commands. Disobedience brings disaster. Each morning, the travelers swear to their respective gods to follow orders, and the sense of unity and vulnerability is palpable. The desert's omnipresent silence and grandeur strike Santiago as profoundly spiritual. Guided by the wisdom of a camel driver who speaks of living in the present rather than fearing the unknown, Santiago grows keenly attuned to the universal language, the signs and omens that connect all things. He gives up his book, choosing instead to read the world and learn directly from the desert. Applying lessons first gained from his sheep and then from Tangier, talk of tribal war intensifies. Hooded Bedouin, mysterious sentinels of the desert, appear and vanish, speaking in veiled warnings. The caravan's pace increases. At night, fires are banned to avoid detection, and the travelers huddle together for warmth and safety. Part 12. Santiago's friendship with the Englishman deepens. The Englishman, preoccupied with his alchemical texts, tries to impress upon Santiago the discipline, devotion, and secrecy required to achieve the masterwork. The philosopher's stone which turns metal to gold and the elixir of life which grants health and longevity. The Englishman is frustrated by Santiago's innate preference for intuition and simplicity. But Santiago finds the essence in the stories of legendary alchemists, that the true language of the world is simple and can be learned through observation and love. Part 13. Arrival at Al-Fayoum. Love and discovery. After a perilous journey, the caravan arrives at Al-Fayoum, a sprawling oasis with more than 300 wells and 50,000 date palms. A veritable city in the desert. The oasis is governed by strict laws of hospitality and neutrality. No fighting is allowed, for women, children, and the elderly are its heart. Here, while helping the Englishman search for the alchemist, Santiago meets Fatima at the well. Instantly, he experiences the transformative power of love, a connection beyond words. Described as the language of the world, Fatima, proud of her desert heritage and aware of its traditions, is charmed and accepts his confession. Their bond is immediate and deep. Yet Fatima recognizes that Santiago's search for his treasure is inexorably linked to his love for her. She affirms, "If I am really a part of your dream, you'll come back one day." Meanwhile, the Englishman locates the alchemist, who gives him only enigmatic advice. Try transforming lead into gold for himself. The Englishman returns to his experiments. Santiago, on the other hand, grows in self-understanding and in his appreciation for the symbolic, universal lessons of alchemy. Part 14. The Vision at the Well. Omens and Warfare. Santiago spends his days at the well with Fatima. One afternoon, while meditating on two hawks clashing in the sky, he receives a prophetic vision of an army invading the oasis. Recognizing this as an omen, he consults with a camel driver, who understands seers and omens, and then resolves to warn the tribal chieftains. His audience with the elders is tense and formal. Santiago must overcome skepticism to communicate the danger he has foreseen. The eldest chieftain, invoking the story of Joseph in Egypt, who also interpreted dreams, decides to heed Santiago's prophecy. All weapons are distributed, and if any are unused by day's end, Santiago's life will be forfeit. Come sunrise, the oasis is attacked by desert warriors. Thanks to Santiago's warning, the defenders repel the invaders, and Santiago receives his reward. He is celebrated, but the episode foreshadows that the journey to his treasure requires engagement not only with dreams but also with practical action and risk. Part 15. The Alchemist. Guide and Sage. Impressed by Santiago's courage, the alchemist, a mysterious, powerful figure robed in black with a falcon on his shoulder, reveals himself. He tests Santiago's resolve, then becomes his mentor, guiding him across the desert toward the Egyptian pyramids. The alchemist's teachings are both practical and mystical. He shows Santiago how to locate life in the desert by following the lead of his horse. He explains alchemy not as a literal science but as a metaphor for personal transformation. Each thing and each person in creation must fulfill its personal legend, and those who interfere with the personal legend of another thing never will discover his own. Santiago is torn by his newfound love for Fatima. The alchemist asserts, love never keeps a man from pursuing his personal legend. He predicts that if Santiago stays, regret will follow. Only by completing his quest can he truly return. The choice to keep moving reflects the essential theme of the novel. Achieving one's destiny is a sacred commitment, and true love supports, not obstructs, the quest. Part 16. The Walk to the Pyramids and the Ultimate Test. Together, Santiago and the alchemist traverse the vast, dangerous desert, skirting tribal skirmishes. The alchemist pushes Santiago to listen to his heart, to overcome fear and doubt, and to embrace the universal wisdom within. When they are finally captured by a warring tribe and threatened with death, the alchemist claims Santiago can demonstrate his powers by turning himself into the wind. Santiago, terrified, meditates for 3 days, communicating with the desert, the wind, and the sun, eventually appealing to the soul of the world and the Creator. In a climactic spiritual moment, Santiago achieves a mystical union with creation, becoming the wind and astonishing the tribesmen. This mystical episode cements Santiago's understanding that he is a part of the soul of the world, and that following his personal legend is sacred and possible. The alchemist then brings Santiago to a Coptic monastery, demonstrating the literal craft of alchemy, transforming lead to gold, and leaving Santiago with gold for his travels. He reminds Santiago that all things are one, and that, ultimately, the lessons of the journey matter most. Part 17. Arrival at the Pyramids. The treasure's true meaning. Approaching the Egyptian pyramids, worn, exhausted, yet transformed, Santiago reaches the summit. Overwhelmed by awe, he weeps, and where his tears fall, he notices a scarab beetle, a sacred symbol of Egypt, burrowing in the sand. Taking this as an omen, he begins to dig. He is promptly accosted by refugees from the tribal wars, beaten, and almost killed. To save himself, he reveals his dream of treasure at the pyramids. Their leader laughs and confesses a similar dream, of a treasure buried under a sycamore in the ruins of a Spanish church. The thieves leave Santiago with this cryptic clue. Realizing the full circle of his journey, Santiago returns to Spain, to the church where he began. He digs under the tree and discovers a chest of Spanish gold coins, jewels, and relics. His true treasure was always at home, its location revealed by a journey of self-discovery, risk, and relentless pursuit of his dream. Part 18. Epilogue. The Return. With his treasure found, Santiago recalls his promise to share a tenth with the gypsy woman. Urim and Thummim have served their purpose. The old king's influence ever present. The wind delivers the scent of Fatima, signaling her patient hope. The novel closes as Santiago joyfully plans to reunite with her, knowing now that the greatest reward is the realization of one's personal legend, enriched by the wisdom and love found along the way. This is the end of the book summary of The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. The narration is brought to you by The Whispering Shelf. Thank you for listening.